This is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast on the internet at 0440 GMT on 10th of April 2024, which coincides with the Islamic Eid al-Fitr at the end of the month of Ramadan. So whoever, one or two people watching this and at the same time as it is being broadcast, or anyone who may watch this afterwards, my Eid Mubarak. Welcome to Eid. The newspapers today, Wednesday, 10th of April 2024, carry reports about the evidence given to the inquiry about the criminal behavior by the post office that harassed and tortured and traumatized and falsely prosecuted nearly 1,000 sub-postmasters and mistresses. The evidence was given by Alan Bates. Alan Bates is the campaigner that actually was recognized in the dramatized story of the campaign against the post office broadcast by the ITV network in the UK. So Alan Bates gave evidence on Tuesday, the 9th of April 2024, and his key words are put on the front page of the Daily Mirror, that the post office is run by thugs in suits. Now, the baby angel Geronimo experience, as can be recalled by Helen MacDonald, baby angel Geronimo's mom in South Gloucestershire, in southwest England, is very similar. That under the cover of DEFRA, thugs in suits and thugs in dresses conducted years of harassment of Helen MacDonald for standing up for baby angel Geronimo. The baby angel Geronimo's case was, of course, known, but I didn't come across it until sometime in the summer of 2021. And the more I studied the facts and the evidence, the more outrageous the behavior of the depraved DEFRA became. It's based on the evidence that I have called this banner Baby Angel Geronimo. And the manifesto now that I'm adding to, is based on the evidence. Now, I have been a campaigner. I am a campaigner. I shall always be a campaigner in the most straightforward, transparent, purely factual sense. All these decades, and I am absolutely outraged at the silence of the UK Parliament, at the outrageous behavior of the depraved DEFRA towards and against baby angel Geronimo. The baby angel Geronimo represents the truth in the purest in the sense that is explained, described, detailed, hinted at, revealed in the Holy Quran. And the evidence of the behavior of the cruel individuals who made the decisions in the beginning to launch the harassment program against Helen MacDonald, baby angel Geronimo's mom in England. These people will be tried in the day of judgment, on the day of judgment, based on the evidence of baby angel Geronimo and based on the evidence of the angels that are recording, have been recording the behavior of these people. Because on the little island of England, in England, there is no justice. There is no justice whatsoever. And the fact that baby angel Geronimo could be targeted and vilified, misrepresented, lied against, and all of these taking place without the utterance about this by a single elected member of parliament or a single elected member of the local council in South Gloucestershire or in Gloucestershire. It is astonishing that the Times newspaper, owned and controlled by the Murdochs, has run 2 leading articles in the last fortnight promoting the criminal who was streeting the so-called shadow health secretary, and for no reason at all except to promote the interests of the drugs producing cartels, mainly based in the USA, and their agencies and agents in the UK. And they are doing this in order to destroy the remaining pretense of the National Health Service. And they're doing that in anticipation of the formation of a government in the United Kingdom fronted by the criminal Keir Starmer, wrongly named Keir, because the founder of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, Keir Hardie, not Keir Starmer, the founder of the Labour Party, Keir Hardie, as they say, would be turning in his grave for everything at the revelation of the criminal, antisocial, corrupt, cruel, selfish, racist, genocidist, pro-imperialist, pro-capitalist thinking, policies and strategies of Keir Starmer. The Times has done this in contrast with the absence, in contrast to the absent intervention against DEFRA, against the lying by DEFRA against the baby angel Geronimo. So the Times' priority is has been and is criminal. So, what the Murdoch media is doing is setting the scene for the perpetuation of the injustice and the unjust status quo. So that means that the difference, so-called, between the two political parties, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, is minimized. As the real controllers of the levers of power, the real decision makers remain unaltered, regardless of the party political superficial difference resulting from the election, which makes the election a complete absurdity, which is what it always has been. Democracy is a joke. There is no accountability. There is no answerability, and there is most certainly no impulse or impetus for seeking justice, redress, vindication for the innocent. The evidence that Alan Bates gave on Tuesday, of course, had been anticipated and had already been more than adequately aired in the last year, especially because of the very timely and very commercially profitable intervention by the ITV organization. So the Daily Mirror of Wednesday, today, 10th of April 2024, sums it up by quoting Alan Bates, condemning the post office as being run by thugs in suits. Now, if you extrapolate that thugs in suits to cover all the relevant decision-making operations locally and centrally in the United Kingdom, you can then begin to see why, according to newspaper items today, other news items, 10 million people are in desperate poverty in the United Kingdom. The majority of the 10 million people are white people, not migrants. So forget about the migrants for the kind of purpose of brevity. What have these white people done? What crimes have they committed to deserve to be condemned to this burden of poverty and starvation and famine, effectively? Because people can't afford to eat and pay the bills, the heating bills, buy other necessities, essentials, with the amount of money that they are able to access. And the so-called welfare state is a joke. Now, if you take the sum of money that the Rishi Sunak-fronted criminals have handed to the conservative criminals in the last, let's say, 5 years. I mean, Rishi Sunak was the chancellor when the criminal Boris Johnson was prime minister. The estimated amount is about at least 10 billion pounds in 2024 prices. That amount of money is taken away from society, and it's hidden in the pockets of the criminals who are not sharing that money with the 10 million people. If the 10 million people were able to access any part of that money, the poverty would disappear. But the poverty would not disappear if the local decision makers, who are actually based in local councils, the local decision makers who are based in local councils in England are themselves, in the main, in the posts in order to pocket as much benefits for themselves as they can. And there is a free for all in the local councils. As annually reported by the conservative pressure group called Taxpayers Alliance. The Daily Mail front page on Tuesday. Let's see if we can get the page before the camera. That's the Daily Mail front page of Tuesday, the 9th. And it reads, record surge in £150,000 council fat cats. Now that is a completely misleading, inadequate headline, but it just gives an indication of the selfish culture that dominates local councils. So assuming that local councils are in place to deliver local services, which is the most extensive, the most kind of necessary services needed by people in the local area. If the people making the decisions about housing benefit, about housing, about social services, about care, are actually obsessively dedicated to enhancing their own benefits and their own allowances and their own kind of salaries and wages and whatever, then it follows that the ordinary people, to meet whose needs they are in post, are going to be let down, left out of the equation, which is where the majority of the problems arise. The majority of the problems are caused by the local council being run by unaccountable criminals. One of the points that has been made in one of the newspapers in the last 12 hours is that if councillors were required to sign off this surge in fat cash salaries, then maybe there would be transparency. That is based on stupidity of the highest order. Stupidity because that is based on the ignorance about how councils operate. They don't work, they operate. As we have said, exclusively, world exclusively. Local councils in England, it's a given on the evidence. Local councils in England are corrupt, criminal. And local council employees are cruel. And local councillors, as has been recognized at last belatedly by Private Lie in the Rotten Borough's column, current edition of Private Lie, Tower Hamlets Council, which is fronted by the crook Luther Roman as the so-called incumbent elected executive mayor, his side controls the elected council as well. And as many as 5 of those elected councillors that belong to the misleadingly called Aspire Party are crooks. Crooks that have been exposed in the last 1 month. Well, exposed in the last 4 months, but it is only reported in Private Lie, so in the last fortnight. Because there is a planning application, planning license for an entertainment kind of platform in an area in Tar Hamlets by a man called Santosh Nair. That application was the subject of demands for bribery by as many as 5 councillors of Lutfur's misleadingly named Aspire Party. And despite the fact that Lutfur Rahman was made aware of corruption by these councillors, Lutfur Rahman, as stated in the Private Lie Rotten Borough's column, Crooked Towers item, did not act. Now the Private Lie is idiotic. Lutfur Rahman is a proven crook himself. So to say that he didn't act misses the point. And the other thing that I have been recalling from the so-called hustings held at the Business Development Centre, so-called, in the Greater X Street, London, E1, days before the 2010 so-called mayor's election. The husting, that is, candidates being asked questions by a group of people, and that hustings was attended by the London Evening Standards reporter called David Cohen. Now, David Cohen was there not as an elector in Tar Hamlets, but to cover the event. And David Cohen asked Lutfur Rahman a question about the defamatory comments spread by Lutfur Rahman's supporters against Abbasuddin alias Halal. And David Cohen, to paraphrase, said, "Do you distance yourself from your supporters who are spreading the defamatory thing against Abbasuddin alias Halal," which is to say that Abbasuddin alias Halal had beaten up his ex-wife? Now it's simple, isn't it? And Lutfur Rahman should have answered yes or no. So what did he say? He didn't say yes or no. He didn't even understand David Cohen's question. So on that basis, I have said that Lutfur Rahman has got serious cognitive difficulty. He cannot understand straightforward questions. Lutfur Rahman said, "I never beat up my wife." Now, David Cohen had not asked about Lutfur Rahman beating up his own wife. David Cohen had asked whether Lutfur Rahman had denounced or distanced himself from Lutfur Rahman supporters who had been spreading the untruth about Abbasuddin alias Halal, saying that Abbasuddin alias Halal had beaten up his former wife. That's not the same thing as Lutfur Rahman's wife. And during the few minutes of that exchange, a woman sitting not far from where David Cohen was sitting in the Business Development Center in Greater X Street in October 2010. A woman, Bangladeshi woman, sitting not far from David Cohen, loudly said, I am married to Lutfur Rahman, or she was the wife of Lutfur Rahman, and that she was never beaten up by Lutfur Rahman. Now the question was nothing to do with her. The question that David Cohen asked Lutfur Rahman was whether Lutfur Rahman had distanced himself from and denounced or criticized his supporters who had been spreading the rumor that Abbas Uddin Elias Halal, the Labour Party candidate, had beaten up his former wife. Because at the time, Abbas Uddin Elias Halal was married to a different person. The reference to the former wife dates back some years. And Lutfur Rahman didn't understand that question. It is impossible to say that he understood the question and he distorted it. My impression was and still is that Lutfur Rahman did not understand the question. And Lutfur Rahman is a dishonest boy. He's a dishonest boy, as Richard Morey, the election commissioner, points out in his judgment against him dated the 23rd of April 2015. Lutfur Rahman is not reliable as a witness and doesn't answer questions. So we shall be ending this one at just under 28 minutes at 05:07 GMT on Eid al-Fitr Day, 10th of April, Wednesday, 2024, and continue on the themes in later editions.